And as promised, this is this long piece of Agadata. It runs on Nun Hey, and Nun Vav. And the topic that we got into it, just to kind of, maybe we just close the door, okay? The topic that we got into it, if you recall, if you were here last week, is we had a Mishnah which talked about the things that animals cannot go out with, and he enumerated a number of them which either were prohibited because we're afraid the animal may drop it and you may pick it up, or the animal didn't really need it, so it's considered masui. It wasn't really considered a tachshid. It wasn't considered a piece of garment. It was considered more of something the animal was carrying. And then the last item was paraso. Shel Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah went out with a ritzua ben karneha. It went with a rope or a chain, a strap between its horns, and his machlokas to be shown him whether that was strictly, or actually machlokas whether it was strictly for noi, for decorative purposes, which is excess decorative purposes, or was actually also l'shamer, which made it excess l'shamer, because basically to yank it between the horns to pull this cow is fairly docile, and he did it, but it was shelo b'rtzon chachamim, and the chachamim disapproved of it, which means that it was not the right thing to do. And the Gemara says, well, Rav Elazar ben Azariah had many cattle. So what do you mean, the cow of Rav Elazar ben Azariah? So the Gemara says it actually was the cow of his neighbor, and he didn't say anything to her. In other words, he had many different flock, which he did properly, and he looked after, and there was no problem with Shabbos. However, this Nebuch, Yiddishke, who lived next to him, she had one cow that had the thing between the horns, and he just never bothered to tell her that she should correct it on her animal. We don't know what she would have said, by the way, of course, and for that, he is put to task by the Mishnah that it's his cow, and he was shelo b'rtzon chachamim, which opens the whole Gemara into a discussion that we're now going to get into. The next two blot is really about the sense of responsibility one has to tell other people they're doing something wrong, which is a very complicated topic. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about it. We've got a piece here at the end, but the Gemara goes through a number of examples where the responsibility is upon the person who can do it. So not always do we have that ability to create change, and surely today there are cases where we're better off not being forceful with change because it will only backfire, right? Or people will not listen. But if you have an assumption that it's possible to effect change, sometimes it's better. But sometimes it's easier to catch with honey rather than with, so to speak, with, I forget the opposite, vinegar. There you go. So, but that takes us to really the end of the page on Dalet Amud Bet. And it says as a result, maybe we'll just go back to the last four lines. Kol mi she'afshar limchot l'anshei beito v'lo micha nimcha nitfas l'anshei beito. If a person could get the people of his household, doesn't only mean his wife and kids, could be the servants and the other hired help to correct their ways, and he doesn't, he's responsible. It's put on his account. It's charged to his account, so to speak. Nitfas l'anshei beito, bi'an she'iro. If he could effect change upon the people of his city, nitfas l'anshei iro. He is accounted for with their sin. B'chol olam kulo. If he could effect change for the entire world, means of course the entire Jewish world. Nitpas al kol olam kulo. He is responsible for them if he could have effected change and just simply was nachlesik. He was lazy or complacent and did not. And on Rav Papa says, "V'hani debei reish gelusa nitvasa kol yama." What's the example of where a person is responsible for the entire world? The people of the reish gelusa, the dignitaries. There was a whole political system in the reish gelusa and the Exarch's household where they had nobility and all these different underlings, and they all had certain responsibilities. And as a result, if they did not look after the religious values of the known Jewish world at that point, they are really accounted on their behalf. So having a political patronage job can be somewhat hazardous in this halachic construct.
This is all derivative of hochech tamitecha, right?
This is a derivative, yes, of hochech damitecha, of v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. It's a derivative of a sense of responsibility. So hochech is giving them reproof, but loving them is also by the Gemara discusses, for example, that v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you're responsible to return not just their object, you're responsible to return their life. And Tosos somewhere says it, and it's not here, but when the Gemara says that v'ahavta l'recha kamocha is also a directive that I should, I'm sorry, my mistake, not v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, Hashavas Aveda, Hashivosalo. When the pasuk says you are to return something that your neighbor lost, it's not only to return them an object, but it's also to return to them their life. So one of the obligations you have to look after someone who's in danger or to save someone is from Hashivosalo. So Tosfos there discusses, Tosfos, I think it's in Brachas, if I'm not mistaken, says it's not only if they're physically in danger, even if they're spiritually in danger. If I can return their soul to them, not their physical life, but their soul, not just save them from drowning, but save them from drowning spiritually, that's also part of a hashivosalo. Okay? And it is also part of what v'ahavta le'acha kamocha, that love them, is you want to do right, they should do right as well. But yes, there is part of hocheach tocheach. Correct.
On Yom Kippur, where they draw the two lots.
Yes.
Take which goat? Don't they tie something on the one goat?
Yes, they tie a crimson thread onto the scapegoat.
Right.
And they tie the other half to the base.
Yom Kippur is on.
Not between, no, but it's not right. Correct. But once again, that's not simply either a tachshit or anything else. It's just simply the sign that would turn the crimson would turn white, right? And they, of course, no one could see that.
Carrying it on Shabbos.
Yes, and actually, not only is it carrying on Shabbos, the goat's going fairly far out. The goat is going 13 kilometers outside the city, so the goat is actually going outside Tchum Shabbos.
Is somebody going with them?
So they change every 1,000. They change every 1,000 amot, but the last person goes all the way out. The last person goes beyond Chum Shabbos, and in fact, the person that goes out with the scapegoat to the very end, where he tosses him off, cannot return until after Yom Kippur, I believe. He has to stay there because the mitzvah is to take the scapegoat to the midbar, to where with shmama, but he can't return after that. So it's a very strange. The whole thing is very strange. The whole concept of scapegoat is strange. Right, and they used to tie one half of the crimson thread to the door of the Beis Hamikdash, and people would wait to see that the crimson thread would turn white. That was a sign of kapara, but not always did it turn white. So they began putting it on the inside of the door. So people began sneaking a look inside the door, which wasn't right. Okay, so I think they did away with it. We have to remember that in doing the mitzvahs of Yom Kippur, there is so much that we would call chilul Shabbos. Right, just any carbon that was brought was sacrificed. Right, it was sacrificed. It was killed. It was burnt. I mean, this sounds just like the antithesis of what we expect. It's not just Yom Kippur. Every Shabbos there were korbanot that were brought. Every Yontif, every Shabbos were korbanot that were brought. The Tamid was brought. Right, so that's just what Hashem says. So you thought paraduma was a tough thing to understand, right? Karbanos are a tough thing to understand. Anyone who's doing Daf Yomi and Zvachim knows it's a tough thing to understand. But I'm saying just the whole concept of doing these things, of bringing a sacrifice and what it looked like, it's mind-boggling. I really can't imagine what it looks like, what it will look like when Mashiach comes. And walking around throwing all this blood on the altar, taking the bird and doing mitzvah, you take the blood and you squeeze out the blood from the neck onto the side of the mizbeach, you take the neck.
Maybe it's like the Rambam says, right? It was only for that particular time.
Maybe. I think I've told you. I asked when I went to Mechon HaMikdash, and they took me around. So, and actually, they gave me a private tour. They thought I could get them some donors. I think they were trying to get from me, but they didn't really get anything. But they gave me a very nice tour, and I asked them. I said to them, what's going to happen? Like all this kind of stuff. What are people going to say in Western society? So they told me basically it's going to be like Sobeys. I think I've given this example. Like you go and you place the order, and you walk out with the meat all saran wrapped. Maybe, but you don't see what's going on in the back room in Sobeys where the sides of beef come in. Right, and they have to trade with them and play with them and move them around and cut them up. I'm sure it's not very pretty, and it's even less pretty in the slaughterhouses, right? Whether it's big animals or whether it's even ophos when they're coming in from Marvid or wherever they come from, right? But we don't see any of that. So they say that's going to be the same thing basically in the Beis Hamikdash. It's going to be air conditioned. Everything's going to be nice and fine. Like you walk out with your shopping cart, that's what you're going to get, a piece of your karbanos. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine because the slaughterhouses that we have today are not in the city. You don't see this. And back in the day, if you grew up as little kids, maybe you did. And if you didn't, then your parents did.
Downtown here on St. Clair and was it Dufferin or Kiel or something like that?
Ben's Road.
The smell was unbelievable.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. My father grew up in Camden, New Jersey, and the shul was near the slaughterhouses, near the stockyards, not the slaughterhouses, the stockyards. And one Yom Kippur, one of the steers got out. There was excitement for the kids to watch them chasing the steer. But these things happen, and you don't see that next to a shul anymore. Right now we see people just running around, Kiddush clubs, no more steers. Okay, I'm saying the bottom line is things are different. So we have a very different sensitivity. Anyways, that's the story of the scapegoat, and that's the story of Yom Kippur, and that's the story of Korbanos. But the bottom line is we are responsible, and consequently, if we were in a position of being the Reish Galusa, which is the head of the community in Bavel, which was the leader, he was the descendant of Beit David, and becomes the supreme leader of the Jewish community as the Nasiut, the Nasi in Israel, goes down in stature with the oppression on the Roman Empire. So the leadership and the stature of the Reish Galuta, which was a position recognized by the authorities, the Parthian authorities. They had internal responsibilities for the Jewish community, was treated with tremendous respect and deference. Sometimes was a scholar, sometimes was not a scholar, but treated the scholars with deference and respect. That was the position. So he's responsible for everybody. Okay, so in other words, we all have our little silos, we all have our little circles of what our responsibility is. If you're at the top, you're responsible for everybody. Okay, the last couple of words on Nun Dalet Amud Bet. This is the very bottom. So, Ki Ha'adam Rav Chanin.
Isn't it a negative to be in the top position?
It's a responsibility.
You're a slave to whatever.
Yeah, of course.
You're not you have no things for yourself.
I think you have to have you have to be a special personality, be a good politician. I agree.
I think it's sort of a negative.
Okay, you have to. It's negative or positive depending on what you are. But the truth is, a leader of any organization. I mean, there's books and tomes of books written about how styles of leaderships are, what style of leadership should be. There's what's called disruptive leadership, like we have in the United States now, that's a style of leadership. You keep changing until the people can't catch up with you. But there are styles of leadership. But to be a leader means that you have to be thick-skinned at certain points. You have to make those right decisions. That's why they pay them the big bugs.
In terms of the parsha, Aaron, okay, he's blamed for the eagle.
Yes, he is. He was put in charge.
I mean, what could he have done?
Well, that's now. See, now this is Monday morning quarterbacking.
No, I'm just saying.
Right?
I'm just using an example. Like he's top.
Yes.
The best, elite.
Well,
everybody loves him. Everything.
So the truth is, right? But you have to remember, at the end of the day, he wasn't the person who really was the president. He was the vice president. He was the person. He was the substitute teacher while the teacher was away, and maybe he was not necessarily suited for it, right?
It's not blamed for Cheder anyway. If you look at Parsha Chukat, right, last Parsha we did, twice it says you're not going into it. Talking to Aaron, you're not going to Eretz Yisrael because of the incident of Mei Meriva.
Right.
Twice it says that, so it seems fairly obvious that was his problem.
But what did he do with Mei Meriva?
So we're getting off topic, and I don't know that I'm really prepared to discuss this.
My point is just that the higher
that's correct. That's right. You know what? When you are the captain of the ship, you make sure everybody else gets off first. And if you hit the rocks, you're responsible, not the passengers. That's correct. The higher up you go, the greater responsibility. But the point of this being, now, we're not talking about political responsibility as much as religious responsibility. And all too often, and in our society today, and I'll say this, and then we'll get back to our Gemara. Today's society, religion is a sense of personal decision, right? People keep religion, more religion, less. Not just Judaism. I mean, religion in general. This is your own personal moral decisions, what you do, and how you do it and how you don't do it is not my business. Right? And that's not the approach of the Torah. The approach of the Torah is that the responsibility of the leader of the community is responsible for their religious responsibility. Their religious responsibility is his responsibility. Okay, so that's what we're all about. Now, once again, as we said before you walked in, is there's a certain limit to what you can do sometimes and how you can impact. And sometimes you come out, gangbusters. You kind of lose more than you gain, which is the situation today. At any rate, let's go back to our Gemara. The Rav Chanin, the last line. Hashem v'mishpat yavo im ziknei amo v'sarav. Okay, God is going to come with mishpat, just judgment, with the zakenim, with the elders, and with the sarim, with his nobility, or what would you call them, officers. So I understand the officers are going to be responsible what goes wrong. But what is the Zakanim going to be responsible? The Zakanim have a theocratic leadership. They're a religious leadership. The Zakanim are the Sanhedrin, says Rashi. So the Gemara says, Sarim chatu, Zakanim achatu. If the Sarim didn't lead the people correctly, and they put the people into political disarray, and they lost the battle, and they're about to get destroyed. And this is what Yeshaya is talking about in the first couple of chapters. Chazon Yeshaya ben Amot, he's forecasting the destruction, the Churban. So what did the Sanhedrin do? They're trying to do whatever it is religiously. They're not bad guys. Ela ema, what did the Zakanim do? Ela ema ala Zakanim shalom michu b'sarim. No, the Zakanim had a responsibility that if the Sarim turned the people the wrong way, I guess the Sarim were worshiping idols or something, or they weren't being religiously committed as much as they should in the Beis Hamikdash, who's responsible? Not the Sarim, but rather members of the Sanhedrin. Okay, so this is just another example. Gemara is going to give a number of examples. We're actually going to come to a very complex example in a couple of minutes. Rav Yehuda Havi Yosef Kamei de Shmuel is a little interesting story. Rabbi Yehuda was sitting in front of Shmuel. Okay, this is the beginning of the time of the Amoraim. Rav and Shmuel is the first generation. Rabbi Yehuda is both a student of Rav and a student of Shmuel. He's sitting there. Asi.
Which Rabbi Yehuda?
Rabbi Yehuda the Amora, not Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda the Tana. There's a number of Rabbi Yehudas. There's only one Rabbi Yehuda the Amora.
This is Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira?
No, that's Rabbi Yehuda the Tana. This is Rabbi Yehuda, whose father eludes me now, who is a student of Rav and student of Shmuel. Many times in the Gemara they say, Rabbi Yehuda, Rav, Rabbi Yehuda, Shmuel. The Amora. He's one of the Amoraim in the second generation Amoraim. So we're dealing in an Amoraic era. We're not dealing with Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. That is the students of Rabbi Kiva, which is probably about 150, 200 years before. Okay, so he's sitting in front of Shmuel. Shmuel is a scholar. Also, he did so a woman comes along called Tzavcha Kamei, and began screaming against Shmuel. Obviously, she had a judgment that didn't go her way, and she's now coming to complain about. That's what it appears to be. And Shmuel didn't pay any attention to her. So it looked like fairly heartless, and more importantly, you're responsible. Shmuel, if you paskin, you need to explain it. You have to make her happy. If you don't make her happy, well, you haven't done good to her. So Amalei. So Rabbi Yehuda said to Shmuel, Lo savale mar, do you not, does Mr. is referring to Shmuel in the third person, there's difference. Do you not believe in the following pasuk in Mishlei? Otem ozno mezakas dal. If you close your ears from the cry of the poor. Now maybe she didn't have a judgment. Maybe she just had something to complain about. But the pasuk in Mishlei says the person closes their ears from the cries of the poor. Gamhu yikra v'lo yaneh. He also will call, and he will not be responded to. So you, Shmuel, are not responding to her cries, and maybe Shmuel knew what kind of person she was. She was a meshugna, she was a kvetcher, she was a complainer. But if you don't respond to her, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to put you to task. You have a right to address her issues. What Rabbi Yehuda says to his master?
Yeah.
He says, don't you? Well, you see the answer.
You don't hold like the Hillel? Come on.
Okay. I guess he said it nicely. I guess. Okay. He's quoting a pasuk in Mishlei. I don't know.
Mishlei, sorry.
Maybe he also may not have known exactly what the situation was. There are all kinds of people, and some are more difficult to work with. So the Gemara doesn't tell us the details of what exactly it is, but she obviously was making a nuisance of herself, and Shmuel just simply kept going and didn't stop. He probably had seen this lady before. But it seems strange to Rabbi Yehuda that at least he wasn't trying to calm her down or speak with her or respond to her, right? Or say something to her. So Amalei, so Shmuel said back to Rabbi Yehuda, he called him Shinana. Shinana is like smart tooth one, or sharp one. Like smarty. Right, it could be even shinantam, which means to teach well. So, but the term shinana is a semi-sarcastic term, like smarty pants. Right? Who do you think you are? In fact, look what he says back to them. So it was a bit sarcastic what Rabbi Yehuda said to Shmuel. You're right. He said, "Reishech bekriri, reishech de reishech bechamimi." Your head is going to be is cold. The head of your head is hot. Well, it's obviously was some kind of a phrase that they used that, you can maybe only the heat touches the top of your head. The rest of your head is not affected by the heat around there. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but here's what he's trying to say. The Nimshal, I understand very clearly. He's saying, your head, me, I'm Shmuel, I'm your head. I'm still cool. I'm not in trouble. My head is the one who's going to have to deal with this. If this lady, if I don't deal with this lady, well, who's going to have to deal with her? She just moves up the ladder. So the real responsibility for looking after her, I'm just simply the pawn on the front line. The real responsibility is going to be the responsibility of the person who oversees me. He's probably talking about the Nasi and the Av Beis Din who are above them. So, I can really sleep at night. I'm just a worker, so to speak. He's not a worker, of course, a Talmud Chacham, but there are greater scholars than me above me, which is, of course, unusual for Shmuel to say. It probably wasn't the Nasi. Shmuel is probably in Bava, so it's probably the Reish Galusa. But he's referring to Mar Ukva, Mar Ukva was the Reish Galusa at this point. Okay? And then he says that. He goes on to say, Reishech b'kriri, your head is cold, your head of your head is hot. Hayasiv Mar Ukva Av Beis Din. Mar Ukva is the Av Beis Din. Mar Ukva was also the Reish Galusa. He was my head, so he's going to be responsible for it. Tichsiv, and I'll show you that who really gets in trouble for these kinds of things, who has the ultimate responsibility. The buck stops here, where does it go? So the pasuk says in Yirmiyahu, Beis David, Kol Mar Hashem, house of David, so says Hashem, Dino laboker mishpad v'yatzilo gazol miyad oshek. The justice will come in the morning, the mishpat, or Komar Hashem Dino Laboker Mishpat Vatzilu Gazul Miyad Oshek. The justice will come in the morning. The Mishpat, the judgment, will be by stealing the stolen from the person who is oppressed. Penteitze Beish Chamasi Uvaram Vein Mechaber Mibnei Ra Malaleihem. Lest the fire come out and will destroy and will not be put out because of the badness of your sins or your actions and so forth. But who's being taken to task in this pasuk in Yirmiyahu? Beis David. Right. Well, Beit David, of course, is Mar Ukva, is the Reish Galuta. He comes from Beit David. He happened to come from Beit David. But more importantly, he's saying, look, when Yirmiyahu is castigating the people and taking them to task, who's going to really be in trouble? The Beit David. What about everybody else? What about the people under Beit David? What about the guys who are sitting in local Bati Dinim? No, he goes to the top. Okay, so that's one example where you see the responsibility. The greater your responsibility, the greater your obligation to be responsible. The greater your position, the greater your responsibility. And if you're the Reish Galuta, you have the responsibility for everybody. Another story, okay? And this story is going to lead us into a very complex interpretation of the 9th chapter of Yechezkel, which I covered for you to give to you in a moment. Amalei Rav Zera Rav Simon. Rav Zera said to Rav Simon, Lechintu mar lahani debei Reish Galusa. Remember I told you Reish Galusa, sometimes they were scholars, sometimes they were not so scholars. So sometimes they knew exactly what the halacha was, they were bang on, and sometimes they were like anyone else, and they may not have been careful about the smallest details. So Rav Zera says to Rav Simon, you should give tochacha, lochintus, from the word tochacha, you should give reproof, mister, once again he's treating him in the third person, and many times Chazal spoke to each other in the third person, not directly in the second person. You should give lahani de Reish Galusa, you should give tochacha to the people, to the household of the Reish Galusa, not the servants he means the nobility and the officers who are there. So Amalei, so Rav Simon said back to him, Lo makabli minai. He says, they're not going to accept, they're not going to listen to me. In other words, why should I waste my breath? They're not going to hear me, right? Rav Zera is saying to Rav Simon, I don't know who Rav Simon is, a very unusual name, but he probably was a scholar who also was connected to the house of the Reish Galusa. He may have spent significant time there, which you don't find that many mamorim by him. Rav Zera you find very frequently. So he says to Rav Simon, you should give tochacha to the people of the Reish Galusa. So you're there, you should tell them when you see them doing something wrong, you see them not keeping Shabbos correctly, you should tell them this is not the halacha, you should correct your ways. We don't know exactly what happens in every Reish Galusa, we don't have a daily history, but once again we know that certain Reish Galusas were more religiously committed in their household, and some were like many people. They had the general parameters, they may not have done everything. They were all supportive of a halachic structure, right? But they were not necessarily the Talmidei Chachamim. So he said, you should tell, not the Reish Galus himself, the people of his household. So he says, not going to listen to me. So Amalei. So who says back to him? So Rav Zera says back to Rav Simon, Afagav lo makable lechinchu mar. Even though they're not going to listen to you, you should give them tochacha. In other words, how do you know? No, really, what he's saying is, how do you really know? And even if you know that you should still give them tochacha. Right? Now, Tosfos actually points out, this is Tosfos on top of the page, I'll just do Tosfos before we go ahead, because I think it's an important value for us today. Tosfos points out that this response that Rabbi Moshe Yeres says to Rav Simon, that even though you don't know you should give him tochacha, only applies when there's a suffix. Right? Tosfos says, look at the top of the page on the left side, if you read Rashi, says, Hainu hecha the suffix imekable. It's a question whether they're going to listen or not. Kedamar b'samoch lefneihem migali. You'll see in the case in a moment, the pasuk in the parak in Yecheskel 9. So the discussion will be, how do you know that they're going to accept it or not? But if you know for sure they're not going to accept it, so don't tell them, leave them. Better they should do things unwittingly, so they can always claim when they come to the Olam Ha'emes, we did know better, than to know better and not to do it. I know ignorance is not necessarily a defense, but in this case it looks like it could be. And Tosfos brings a couple of Gemaras for that. So once again, Tosfos points out, and that becomes a very important statement, that for us who have neighbors and people and family, we know if we will tell them something that we don't have a chance, because we've already had those kind of discussions, so we know what it is. Sometimes we can attract them better with honey than simply giving them tochacha. So that becomes a whole idea in terms that's used today in terms of kiruv and so forth. So, but anyway, at this point he says, you don't know, and that's what Tosfos says, a suffix, you should give him tochacha as well. How do you know this, where this comes from? So, here's this chapter in Yecheskel Perek Tet. Okay, this is the Machon Mamre translation, so I think it's the old 1917 JKS translation. It's a very obscure perek. No one really understands what's going on. It appears there are some people, officers or angels dressed as officers, that are coming to destroy. You remember where Yecheskel is standing, and they're coming to Yerushalayim. Where's Yecheskel located? Where's his geography?
On Nahar Bavel.
Nahar Kvar, which is in Bavel. He's in actually Nahar. It's called Nahar Kvar, the Kvar River, which is in land of Kasdim, which is in Bavel. Yecheskel was sent out with the Chorosh V'Masker, the exile in 597. He was a youngster. He was a young person. His nevuah is taking place in Bavel. He has nevuahs about the Beis HaMikdash. In the last 10 chapters or so of Yecheskel are about the Beis HaMikdash. He talks about things where he is suddenly transplanted into Yerushalayim, but he himself is never there. He leaves as a younger person. His nevuah is actually in Bavel. One of the questions that's asked about Yecheskel is, as a rule, and this is the exception to the rule, as a rule, a Navi only gives nevuah in Eretz Yisrael. The reason that Yonah wanted to run away to Tarshish, or wanted to run away and go away from Yaffo, is because outside of Eretz Yisrael, God couldn't speak to him. Well, he found the fish to swallow him. Okay.
Isn't Daniel also an exception?
So Daniel is not really a Navi. Daniel has like Ruach HaKodesh. He's not really a Navi. The other exception, of course, is Moshe Rabbeinu, but that's until they get to Eretz Yisrael. So the answer about there are a lot of people have Ruach HaKodesh outside of Eretz Yisrael. Mordechai, Esther, it's also a Bavel story. Right, so and Avram and Yitzchak and Yaakov, right? So all until they get to Eretz Yisrael, that's not an exception. The question is, after they arrive in Eretz Yisrael, then sanctity of Nevuah only takes place in Israel. Yecheskel is the obvious exception to the rule, and that is the suggestion is he started being a Navi, he was a young Navi in Israel. Once you're a Navi, we don't take away your degree, the fact that you left Eretz Yisrael. Okay, but otherwise that is the one case. But it's important that you understand that he's in Bavel, giving nevuos, looks like dreams and interpretations of Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't necessarily mean these are happening. Right? It means that this is a nevuah of what will happen, and many times nevuah is, of course, a mashal. It's not imagination, but it's a parable. So it doesn't mean that this actually happened. It doesn't in this fashion, but it's something. By the way, the other part about Yecheskel that's very difficult is not just he's outside of Eretz Yisrael, but the last 10 chapters I told you about the Beis HaMikdash, and that is, if you look at the Beis HaMikdash dimensions in Yecheskel, they don't jive with what we know about the Beis HaMikdash. And one answer scholars say is, well, he wasn't in the Beis HaMikdash, he was in Bavel, he never saw it. He may never have seen the Beis HaMikdash, it's very possible. He leaves 11 years before its destruction, the land is in turmoil, he was a younger person. But the traditional answer is that Yecheskel is talking not about the second Beis HaMikdash, he's talking about the future Beis HaMikdash, where things may be a little different. Okay. It's just different. There's a lot of differences. It's not just dimensions. It's just things, the way things are done. Dimensions are different. Things are different. Some things are different, and korbanos are different. So, if you'll read it personally, you won't notice it. But if you start making serious comparisons, you'll see it jumps out. So they say, well, that's about going to be the future base of Mikdash. Whatever. Okay.
That's why there were all these discussions whether or not to include Yechezkel in the Tanakh, right?
Well, that and the fact that the first chapter of Yechezkel deals with the Merkavah, which is impossible to understand. The vision of the divine chariot. What does that mean? No one even knows where to begin with that.
Yeah.
Right? So, and you'll see from chapter 9, this is not a chapter about mystical chariots. It's just a chapter about Yechezkel's Nevuah. It's impossible to make any sense of this. And in fact, we're going to do this now, and I hope I get to finish this piece of the Gemara with you, because we're going to do the piece in chapter 9. The way the Gemara interprets it scrambles around the order of the psukim. Okay? No, which, by the way, is not necessarily bad in terms of drushes of Chazal that are non-halachic. But you'll see the psukim which make no sense. We'll come back to them, and I'll point out to you, first we're dealing with this one, then we're dealing with this one, then we're dealing with this one, and it's presenting them in an order, sequence of events. So as long as we understand we got these angels coming, or they're dressed as six bad guys, or six officers really, and they begin to look like they're coming to destroy the city. Okay? So I'm going to read it in Hebrew and English. We'll just go through it very quickly, and then we'll do the Gemara. Remember, what's the purpose of this? To show that if you don't give tochacha, you're responsible as well. So you could be a great guy, you could be a great tzaddik, but if you didn't look after to make sure the other people didn't turn back, you're responsible. That's the whole key to this, which is not going to be implicit when we read the story in the Mikra. Vayikra Baznei Kol Gadol Lemar. He called my ears who Hashem Kirvu Pegudas Oyer V'ish Kleis Kleim Machshriso Biyado. Cause those that have charge of a city to come closer, and each person who has his destroying weapon in his hand. V'hinei. Well, it's not even clear where this is taking place. Obviously, Yerushalayim. V'hinei Shisha Anashim Boy Miderach Shar Elyon. People are coming from the way of the upper gate. Where's the upper gate, by the way? I don't know. Where's the upper gate?
Which gate are we talking about?
Not even clear. Asher Mofnat Tzafona, which lies in the north, which is the north gate. So we know the western wall. The city of the Beis HaMikdash is on which side of Yerushalayim? Let's get this clear now.
It's on the east side.
It's on the east side. So the northern gate, they think, is the northern gate, which is near where the Lion's Gate is. Okay? Do you remember we once did this pool that I told you I thought was for Korbanos? It's near that area, and there's another gate that was probably beyond that. So that's probably where the northern gates are, somewhere in what is today, I guess, that perimeter of either Lion's Gate or beyond it.
You're talking about the gates of Jerusalem, then, or not the gates?
Yeah, gates of Jerusalem. Yeah. So this is a vision about destroying Yerushalayim. So you'll see in a moment the Mizbeach shows up. They're coming from the Shara Elyon, Hashem Mofnas Tzafona, which is in the north. The and by the way, that's by the way correct that it's north, which is high, because if you actually look at the topography of Yerushalayim, from the northern gate, the water comes down. They had an aqueduct system that brought the water into the valley. The Beis HaMikdash is really built right between the valley. The valley actually was deeper. Where you stand, where the kotel is, it was a much deeper kind of valley. It was filled in to either by dirt and other things. So really the water came in that way. In fact, if you go in the kotel tunnels, if you go through the kotel tunnels, you come out and you pass where the aqueduct is coming in. It's coming in from the north, because that's the high point. The water travels down. So Abishu claim Matzopo Biado. 6 people are coming. They have these weapons of destruction in their hands. There's someone who's dressed in badim, which is very simple linen clothing, like Kohen's clothing. And he's got the writer's craft, the writer's inkhorn on the side. They stand next to Mizbach Nachoshes, okay, which is of course the Mizbeach. That's the big Mizbeach in the Beis HaMikdash. This is the vision. The glory of Hashem has gone up from the Kruvim El Miftan Abayis, the threshold of the house. Now this is very difficult to even understand what it means, somewhat mystical, though they point out in terms of the second Beis HaMikdash that the Kodesh Baruch Hu Shechina jumped back, removed in steps. It went from the Kodesh Kodashim, and the term that's used in the Medrash is Miftan Abayis, to like the entrance to the house, and then finally the Shechina left Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim was destroyed. Second temple is first temple. And he called. I'm not sure who's calling to whom. Maybe this is the angel standing next to Yechezkel, is giving him this vision. Calls to the man clothed in linen, who has the writer's ink horn there. Vayomer Hashem Elav, and Hashem said to him, or maybe Hashem calls to him. I'm not even clear. The whole thing is mysterious. V'avar b'toch ha'am b'toch Yisrael Yerushalayim. Listen to this pasuk. This pasuk will come up. So he says to him. The him is probably who? The person clothed in badim, in linen. Go through the midst of the city, Yerushalayim, v'tavita tav mitzchat anashim, and put a tuft, write a tuft on their foreheads, like inscribe a tuft on the foreheads of all the people, hanenachim v'anakim al kol toivot hanasot b'tocha, the people who are crying and sighing for all the terrible things, the abominations, the avodah zarah that's going on in Yerushalayim. Now I'm not clear, is these people the good guys or the bad guys? Are they crying and sighing for good or for bad? Not clear. We'll see what the Gemara says. And to the others, and v'la'ela amar baznai ivru boyer acharav v'haku al tachos einechem v'al tachmul. Go through the city. Tell to the other 6 guys who've got these destroying weapons with them. Go around the city, kill everybody. Don't spare anyone. Don't have pity on everybody. Who? Zakein bachur betula taf and nashim targula mashchit. Young and old, maidens and little children and women, destroy them. V'al kolish asher lavatav al tigasha. But the people have the tuf on their heads. That's going to be the letter tuf. Don't touch them, and begin. Start tachelu. They interpret as tatchilu, right? Start with the Beis Hamikdash. Vayechelu b'anashim haZekanim asher lefnei habayit. And where do they start? They start from the Zekanim that are in front of the Beis Hamikdash. Just by the way, spoiler alert: Zekanim are who?
The elders.
The elders. Who are the elders? We just had it before. The elders is the Sanhedrin. So you see where the people, where they're going to start with these destroy, whatever this means, and they're going to destroy where they're starting from, the Zekanim. So that's a spoiler alert, just to let you know how they would take and interpret this. Vayom alehem, and say to them, who are you going to say this to? You're starting with the Zekanim, right? Timot abayit. Vayom aleim tamot abayit, defile the house, umilo tacheros chatzir chalalim tzeu v'yatzu and v'yatzu v'kuver. Go out and fill the courtyards, the courts of the Beis Hamikdash of Yerushalayim with bodies, dead bodies, and they did. Vayikakutam v'nishar v'nashar ani etzakrin aksiv, and I was there, I was left. V'epla panai, I Yechezkel fall on my face. V'ezak, and I cry, Akha Hashem Elokim Hamashchet Atat Kol Shevet Yisrael. Are you destroying everybody, Hashem? The whole people? B'shavchat Chamatcha Al Yerushalayim. When you will take out your anger on Yerushalayim, everybody's going to be killed. And Hashem says to me, Avon Beit Yisrael v'Yehuda Gadol b'mod mi'od. The sin of the iniquity of the house of Israel and Judah is terrible. Vatim alayarz damim, is full of blood and killing. V'yarz v'yir mala muta, and it's full of taking of justice. Muta is to pull away justice. Ki amru azav Hashem et haaretz ve'en Hashem roah. Because they said Hashem forsake the land and Hashem sees not. V'gam ani lo tochos einai v'lo echmol. I will not have any mercy, says Hashem. Darkam broshi natata, but I will bring their way upon their head. They thought I left. I'm going to show them that I left. While he's speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this vision, the person who's clothed in linen comes back and says, I've done according to all that you've commanded me. We've wiped out the city. That end of story. Boom. Okay?
This is wild.
Right? This is one of those things that never makes it into Haftorah. Okay? So the whole story itself is like convoluted, and you don't know what's going on. It's obviously not a very happy vision that Yechezkel gets. And remember, once again, he is hundreds of miles away in Babylonia. So he's not even watching this going on. He's getting second, third-hand reports about what's happening between 597 and 586. Okay? So it's imaginary. I don't want to say it's imaginary. It's imaginary of what it is through the Nevuah of Yechezkel. Right? It's not a reality of what's actually taking place in Yerushalayim, but Yerushalayim will be destroyed. It's a terrible vision about the upcoming destruction of Yerushalayim. From a person who's not there, as opposed to Yeshayahu or Yirmiyahu, who are on the scene, right? Who can see the pathos of what's going on, and people aren't listening and turning back to Hashem. He's much farther removed. Okay, so what's going on here? So I already told you with, I believe 1917 JPS translation. There are more modern and probably better translations out there. But if you want to look at the art scroll, I just use it because it's convenient. Machon Mamre translated this many years ago, and as you see, they have a Hebrew-English version, so I didn't have to do the paste up myself. So, but until 1917, or at 1917, that was considered the good Jewish version, not the King James. This is Jewish Publication Society. JPS put out a more modern version probably about 20 years ago that really rings better. Or reads better. Okay, so let's come back to our story now. So we have the story between Rav Zeir and Rav Simon about that you should go tell the people in the house of the house of the Breish Galuta. He says they may not listen. He says you got to tell them anyway, because if you don't, you see what will happen. You're responsible. The Amar Rav Acha Breid Rav Chanina. So now we're going to leave these two guys who are telling the story, and we're going to immerse ourselves in the interpretation of the psukim in Yecheskel. The Amar Rav Acha Bar Chanina. Me'olam lo yotza mida tova mipi HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chazer bo l'ra. It never happened that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said something good, made a promise of good, that before it was carried out was changed back to bad. So that never happened, except this one story here where Kadosh Baruch Hu initially thought was going to save the good people, but in the end saved the bad people. It's not so clear that from the reading of the psukim that he was going to save the good people. Chazal felt he was. D'chsiv, as it says in Yecheskel, Vayomer Hashem Elav, Avor betoch ha'am, betoch ha'ir, betoch Yerushalayim. He says, go out. Among who Hashem said to the person, the six guys, go out among the guy in linen with the other six, the other mechablim, so to speak. He said, go out to the city, Yerushalayim, v'tavita tov ha'mitzchot v'anashim ha'nenachim v'nenakim al kol tovot ha'nesot b'tocha. Go put the tough on the people that are crying about all the bad things in Yerushalayim. And I remember when I read it to you, I said these good guys are bad guys. So Chazal feel they were good guys. Now, it's all the people that are crying, they're saying, Nebuch, Nebuch, Nebuch. The people are worshipping idols. People are being unjust. People aren't listening to Hashem. All the people who are, sitting in the Beis Medrash, and they're just sitting and doing this, and they're crying, and they're saying kinnis for the upcoming Churban that's going to take place, and they're committed. These guys, you put the letter Tav. Now, please don't ask why the letter Tav, because the Gemara will ask at the end of the story. Okay? But put the letter Tav. It's kind of like Uncle Moshe with the big mem on his head. Okay, so put the letter Tav, and so what is that? So Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu LeGavriel. So Kadosh Baruch Hu said to Gavriel. He's not called Gavriel, by the way, in the Torah. There is an ish that's there. There was an angel in the previous chapter. Lech v'shama mitzcham shel tzadikim. Put on the heads of the tzadikim tuf shel dio, a tuf of dio, and maybe the dio is there because the guy's walking. He has this inkhorn in his pocket, so they're going to use that. It's ready there to put the ink on. Shelo yishlutu bahem malachei Chabala, and put a tuf on that the malachim of Chabala, who are these six guys, these six these six, I don't know, look, what do we call them? Terrorists. These six SWAT team that's going out. Put on that they will know not to hurt them. V'al mitzcham shel rishayim tav shel dam, and on the rishayim you're also going to put a tuf, but not on ink of dam. It's going to be red. Kedei sheyishlutu bohem malachei Chabala. So everybody gets a tuf. It's like paintball, okay? It's like putting on jerseys when they're playing different sides. One takes the white jerseys, one takes the black jerseys. Everybody gets a tough, but the bad guys are going to the Rishayim are going to get the red one from the dam, because dam of course symbolizes death, and the tzaddikim are going to get the dio, which maybe symbolizes writing a Sefer Torah and something. So this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told should be done, and this is actually. If you go back to the story of Pasuk 4, look back in the handout sheet that you have, Pasuk 4, that's the Pasuk we're talking about. Vayomer Hashem Elav, God said to him, who's him, the angel, go out the city, b'toch Yerushalayim, v'david atav mitzchot, onashim ha'nenachim ha'nezakim ha'kol toivot nasa b'tocha. And then, the next Pasuk, it says, Ivru bo ir acharav, ve'aku al torchos einechem v'al tachmalu. And then go out among the city and destroy them. So the Chazal feel that there were two sets of tufs that were put out. So this is about to happen. The SWAT team is going to go wipe out the Rishayim, and the Tzaddikim who've been marked to be saved will survive. So Amr Midas Adin Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Here's where the Medrash jumps in. This is the discussion that's not found in the Psukim. The Midas Adin. Who's the Midas Adin? I don't know. You may call him. I'd call him the Satan, but it's a strict attribute of justice. It's not here a Satan. This is like just black and white, no mercy, right? Just the facts, ma'am. Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ribono shel olam, ma nishtanu elo me'elo. Why are you going to save these guys with the black ink, and these guys you're going to kill with the red dam? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, or God said back to Midat Adin, Halalo tzadikim gurim v'halalo rishayim. How do you mean? These guys with the black ink, they're the tzadikim. They're sitting and learning. They're crying. They're saying kinnis. They're saying slichas for all the things that are going on. The other guys, they're rishayim gemurim. So So the Midat Adin says back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Midat Adin, once again, strict justice. Nobody gets out of here. Ribono Shalom, Haya biyadam limchos v'lo michul. The good guys should have told the bad guys, should have had an impact upon the bad guys. The good guys, instead of sitting in the base medrash, davening and saying Tehillim and saying slichas and kinnis and everything else, they should have gone out there to try to have an impact. They're responsible. They're just as guilty. So Amar Allah, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu says back to the Midas Adin, Galu v'yadu lefanai, I know, it's clear to me, shemichu bahem lo yikablu mehem. If they would have given them tochacha, they wouldn't have listened to them. What do you see? If you know the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at least paskins, that if you know the tochacha can't be accepted, it's clear, you don't have to give it. So God says they're not guilty. It's tzaddikim. The tzaddikim knew these Rishonim who were worshipping idols and doing avodah zarah and gilai arayos and all kinds of horrible abominations. They're never going to listen. So what does the Midas Adin say back? So Amra Lafana, the Midas Adin says back, Ribono Shalom, God, Im Lafanecha Galoi Lahem. I'm sorry, Im Lafanecha Galoi Lahem Galoi. If it's known to you that the Rishonim will not listen, did the tzaddikim know that the Rishonim will not listen? Right? They didn't know. And if you don't know, you have a responsibility to try to act. V'hainu d'chsiv, and that's what the pasuk says. And that's in the pasuk goes the pasuk vav, which we read first in the Gemara. Zakin bachra betula tafanoshim targul lamashchid v'al kolish asher lavatav al tigashu umimikdashay tachelu. So it's what does the pasuk vav say? That all the people that have the tough you shouldn't go near. Begin in the Beis HaMikdash, right? Begin mimikdashi tachelu. Start with the Beis HaMikdash. So it looks like from pasuk vav, after having differentiate between the people that God put the tuff of the ink on the good guys, and then telling them to go out to destroy, which means the good guys were going to be saved, the bad guys are going to have this other mark to identify them. It looks like the next thing that should happen in pasuk vav is the good guys will be saved. And and in fact, the pasuk opens up and says to the young people, the bachurim and the batulot, the tafanoshim, you're going to kill, right? Because they're the bad people. But don't go to the next guy people have the tough. Leave the good guys. You can destroy men and women who are the bad people, who are worshiping idols. But the good guys, the tzaddikim, that's good, don't destroy. That's what it looks like is about to happen. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised, okay? But what happens? The end of this very pasuk, and I gave you the spoiler in the end of pasuk Vav, what does it say? It says, "Vayachelu ba'anashim hazakenim asher lefnei habayit." Where do the angels begin to destroy? The zakenim. Zakenim are not bad guys. Well, it's a coined word. It's a buzzword for the people who are the tzaddikim. So it says, "Vayachelu ba'anashim hatzaddikim asher lefnei habayit." So what does it mean? Don't go to when it says umimikdashai. Now the Gemara says, so what is the pasuk? The words before this in pasuk Vav it says before the zakenim, umimikdashai tachilu. Start with the Beis HaMikdash. How does it go? Begin at my sanctuary. So the Gemara darshans this goes back to our Gemara. Mimikdashai tachelu uksiv avaychelu b'anashim hazakenim asher lefnei habayit. Tani Rav Yosef al tikra mikdashai ela mekudoshai. Don't read that God started with the Beis HaMikdash and wiped out only the bad guys. He started with the holy people, the sanctified people. Elu b'nei Yisrael b'nei Adam shekimu Torah kula me'alef ataf. These are the people who are holy from Aleph until Taf, which is kind of trying to giving you a bit of a hint why the Taf was put on their heads. And start with them. Umiyad, and then you go back and what happens? There's 6 people come in from the Shar Elyon, which is up in the north. Where's that pasuk, by the way? I told you it goes out of order. This pasuk I'm reading now is pasuk 2. So the way the Torah, the way the Gemara reads this, verse 2 about the six SWAT team people, these angels coming with their destroying clubs, now show up. It's not so bad to be out of order. Maybe it means that they're just giving things, happening at the same time. And the ish claim mafatza biyado, vish echad besochem lavo shabbat neveked sover b'masnav. These are all the 6 guys with the guy with the inkhorn who's wearing the badim, the linen, vayavo vayamdu eitzim mizbeach and nechoshet. So they come to the mizbeach and nechoshet. Now the Gemara simply asks a second question. Mizbeach and Nechoshet, mihave. So, was there really Mizbeach and Nechoshet? The Gemara simply, there's a side point. The Gemara points out the Mizbeach and Nechoshet did not exist after the days of Shlomo HaMelech. They didn't make it out of Nechoshet. It was made out of earth, okay?
It was earth in the center, it was Nechoshet on the outside, right?
I don't believe so. It's not called Mizbeach and Nechoshet. It's called something else. So it's surely not called that in the second Beis HaMikdash. I forgot what it's called. Okay.
In other words, Ezra didn't make one. Is that what
it's called Mizbeach HaChitzon, maybe. So what Ezra makes, first of all, this is before Ezra. But the Gemara discusses the Beis HaMikdash in the beginning, from the time of Shlomo Melech. There are a couple of things that Shlomo Melech replaces. One of which he makes a much larger Mizbeach. He makes a Mizbeach that's about 3 times the size of the original Mizbeach of Moshe, and it's not called Mizbeach Nechoshet. Okay, so it's not called Mizbeach Nechoshet. It's not made of Nechoshet.
But Yechezkel called it the Choshet.
But correct, and it's called. There's actually another place as well in the Tanakh where it's called Nechoshet. So the Gemara says, what does it mean Nechoshet? So one answer is you probably could say they're using the old term. It's not such a difficult question, right? I don't know, when I came to the city 20 years ago. Oh, actually, it was more than 20 years ago initially. When I first came to the city 40 years ago, people still, the old timers still calling Beis Chaim the Darcy Street Shul, Darcy Street Talmud Torah. I hadn't been on Darcy Street for many years, right? But the old timers who had gone to Darcy Street and they talked about Beis Chaim, they still identified it. Okay, so it's not really the worst problem in the world to call it by the old name. Okay?
It just confirms another part of the strangeness.
Correct. Okay, but there actually is one other place in Tanakh.
He says because the kelim were made from the choshes.
Right. Tosfos points out which one, the third Tosfot. So first of all, Tosfos points out Shlomo got rid of the original mizbeach from the choshet. It was too small to hold everything. And then Tosfos quotes, it says also in Divrei Yomim, Vayash Shlomo et Mizbeach Nechoshes. So Shlomo said also he made the Mizbeach Nechoshes, which he didn't. He built a different one made of dirt. So actually what the Gemara is going to say is going to say the Gemara there is going to give the same reason as we have here, which we haven't given you away the answer yet. So the answer to the Gemara that we're about to read, which Rob kind of spoiled for us, or just told us that the same thing would apply to the Gemara, to the pasuk in Divrei Yomim, which refers to Shlomo, is that why is it called Mizbeach Nechoshet? Because they sang Shira at the Mizbeach when they brought the Karbanos, and they used Klei Nechoshet, they used brass kinds of instruments. Okay, so that's why it's called the Mizbeach, of where they used the brass instruments, the brass Mizbeach, not the Mizbeach, but actually was made of whatever it was. Okay. By the way, I think I told you, I sure said it one time here, at the Mechon HaMikdash, they have a Mizbeach ready to roll out. They've got everything ready to roll out. The Mizbeach they have is made of bricks. Okay, and they said, well, bricks are made of earth. So saying it was Mizbeach Adama, we have the bricks, we just got to roll the thing down the hill and we're all set. Okay, and obviously they built it according to whatever the proper dimensions are of Shlomo, not of course of Moshe Rabbeinu. But the Mizbeach that you see all the pictures of and all the dioramas and all the things is the Mizbeach that Shlomo made, which is 3 times the size of the Mizbeach that Moshe made for the Mishkan. It's a big thing. There were 4 different fires going on the Mizbeach, on the top of the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach that Moshe made was like, it's like the difference between driving a little Fiat and driving a luxury limousine, right? The Moshe, they carried the one from Moshe. And there was dirt underneath it, but it still was the outside was movable. Couldn't move the Mizbeach of Shlomo. Anyways, back at the ranch. So far the story is going in, and therefore they are responsible. Now we're dealing with this Mizbeach Nechoshet. Just lost the place for a moment. So Gemara says Mizbeach Nechoshet mihave. So Amalu HaKadosh Baruch Hu atchilu mimakom she'omrim shira lefanai. Start from the place where they sing shira before me, which is the shira, the Klei Nechoshet. That's what actually is the interpretation, which is Rob directed us to the Tosfot, is the same thing that would answer the same thing in Divrei Yomim. The second other place is Divrei Yomim. Now, so this is the story. So the story is still very mystical. But that's what the Gemara feels. Hakadosh Baruch Hu initially was going to save the tzaddikim, and that's why he put the tuff on them, the black tuff, right? The tuff of Dio. In the end, was everybody gets destroyed. Everybody was killed. It was indiscriminate. Why? Because Midat Adin came along and said they're no better than the Rishonim. What? They're no better than the Rishonim? What do you mean the Rishonim are doing sins? But they could have stopped them. They could have mitigated them. They could have had a hashpah. They could have had an influence. But they wouldn't have listened. But they didn't know that. Right? So they didn't know maybe they could have had an influence is what they thought, and they just didn't. So that's the basic story itself. Now let's kind of just clean up the rest of the pieces. Manin hu shishu anashim. Who are the 6 people? Who are these 6 SWAT team people who go around with their clubs? So Rav Chisda, Ketzef, they're not good angels. Ketzef, Af, Chema, Umashchis, Umeshaber, Umechala. These are all types of destructions. Ketzef is anger. Af is different anger. Chema is more anger. This is the name of the angels. Mashchid is destroyer. Meshaber is breaker. Machala is destroy completely. So these are angels that don't have names like Avriel and Raphael and the kinds of angels you think about. It's not the angel who fights with Yaakov. These are bad angels. These are destroying angels. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has those as well.
So how the actual killing was done by people, wasn't done by angels?
No, they are the 6 people who come and wipe the city out are the angels. Once again, doesn't mean the city was actually wiped out. Let's be very clear. This is the vision that Yechezkel has. Do you ever have a nightmare? Not so much. I say ever. You ever have a nightmare and things don't add up? So you wake up in the middle of the nightmare and you're screaming. Maybe you don't have those, okay? You shouldn't have them. But if you ever have one of those kind of things, you wake up and you say, oh, glad I woke up. I didn't think I was going to get out of that. Right?
The real life sometimes is a nightmare.
Oh, that's true. Okay, but you can't get out. You can't wake up from that, right? But the point of it being, sometimes the nightmare is so when you recount, you remember the nightmare. If you wake up in the middle of it, and you realize that some of it made sense and some of it didn't make sense. I don't mean to say there's a nightmare. This is a nevuah, but the nevuah has elements here that are meant to be symbolic of what could take place. That has a message. A message that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to destroy the city. Not that when the city was destroyed, 6 angels came on to destroy it. It means the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash that happened with Nebuchadnezzar is coming with the accreditation of the Almighty, who's beginning to leave the Beis HaMikdash. He's already left these Kodesh Kodashim, the Shechina, whatever that means, is at the Miftan, is at the threshold of the house, and the angels here sending in, who are Nebuchadnezzar, who is coming as an emissary of God, so to speak. He's destroying the Beis HaMikdash with the support of the Almighty. Unfortunately, these are the angels that he's sending. But these are angels. Anyways, let's finish the story. So this is the story itself. So these are the meanings and the symbolisms. Now all we got to deal with is what is this tuf, right? What is the meaning of the tuf? I know the mem on Uncle Moshe stands for Moshe. What does the tuf stand for? Umaish not tuf. So why do they get the tuf? And remember, in the version of the Medrash, this Gemara, everybody gets a tuf.
Right, either it's black or either it's
red.
Blood.
Or red, blood. From the story in the Yechezkel, it only looks like one group gets the tuf.
The blood one.
I'm not sure. I think it's the good one.
No, but these come and kill everybody. So
right. No, it says at the beginning of V'al first part of Vav, it says V'al Kolisha She'olav HaTov Al Tagishu. Don't touch the people who have the tuf. But then everybody gets destroyed. Everything is full of chalalim, and Hashem says, I'm going to destroy the whole city. They're doing terrible things, and they said there's no God. Well, I'm going to show them there's no God because I'm destroying everybody. And as they speak, the guy comes back and says, sir, the job's finished. Nobody left. No survivors. Okay? So, but the initial thing, it looks like to me that the initial tuf was meant to be a sign of survival. But as Jack pointed out, there's the red tuf, which is the destruction. So, Maishna tuf, Amarav, tuf, tichye, tuf, tamus. So, tuf can either be you live or tuf that you can die. Ushmol Amar, and Shmuel said, Tamaz zchut avot. The zchut avot is finished. Wow, that's terrible. Zchut avot is finished? Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty bad thing. The Gemara is actually going to talk about that. I won't get to it today. When the zchut avot actually finishes. What does zchut avot mean to you?
I remember asking.
Shemoneh-esrei.
Yeah, so what do we do about shemoneh-esrei?
Well, first of all, tell me what it means. Don't tell me shemoneh-esrei.
In their merit, they were tzaddikim. Okay. I'm saved here today.
So it looks like it ends. It looks like, but what doesn't end, by the way, is Brit Avot. So we're asking for the schut of Brit Avot. If you accept this Gemara as literal and as significant, then it either means it's ended. By the way, it's not the only interpretation of what the tuf is, right? So, but it does not end the Brit Avot. Brit Avot still exists, the covenant. So even if you lose your schut, it's like I don't know how to describe it. The love relationship that Israel had with Egypt when they signed the treaty, right? When when not Nasser is his
Sadat
came to Jerusalem, right? So it became a cold peace, but it's still a treaty. Right? No one's broken the treaty yet. Right? You can't say they're friends; they're not kissing, right? But there's, it's there. It's better than some of the other Arab nations, so or not. I'm not sure, but I'm saying, but the Brit avot is there, and a Brit is a Brit, and a Brit is immutable, and a Brit can't be broken. Okay,
but the zechut is over, according to this. Rab.
Yeah, this looks like zechut avot is over. Correct. Okay, and that's what Tosfos points out. This is 1, 2, 3, the fifth Tosfot. Rav Yoch, because we didn't finish it yet. So Rabbi Notam, just read 2 lines of Tosfot. The zechut avot tama, avol brit avot lo tama. The brit avot is not over. Okay, and then actually within some of the Rishonim say, yes, zechut avot is over as a given. But if you're a real tzaddik, you can still get zechut avot. Now, what's really over? The fact that you're guaranteed zechut avot. The zechut avot guarantee for anyone in Klal Yisrael is over, but you can still get the support of zechut avot if you merit it and you become a tzaddik, or you become a good Jew. Tzaddik. Tzaddik means you do the right thing. So that's how they interpret it, and that's how they soften this blow. So Rav Yochanan Amar tachon zechut avot. What's tachon mean? Is it the opposite? How do they translate tachon? Chen is from chen, or it means to end as well.
The merit of the patriarchs confers grace.
Okay, so he has the other approach. Rav Yochanan says the other way around. It's still chen from zechut avot. The zechut avot which exists, and he's not saying like Shmuel says it was ended. It's still there. Okay, so it brings chen tachon. Will bring chen. So the taf stands for tachon zechut avot, not tama zechut avot. Okay, so once again, by the way, all these things, we say, why do I have to use the letter? So there's a lot of symbolism in Judaism. Why do you eat apple and honey on Rosh Hashanah? So why do you have the tuf on your head? Was to symbolize one of these things. Rish Lakish Amar, Rish Lakish says, Tav Sof Chotamo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The tuf is the sign of the seal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Amar Rab Chanina, Chotamo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Emet. The seal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Emet, and therefore cannot be forged, cannot be falsified. And the last letter of Emet is, of course, the letter Taf. Okay, of course, you say you should put an aleph on it. And let's just finish up here. Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmani Omar, or Amar Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Elu b'nei Adam shekimas atar kula me aleph ad Taf. Okay, so they why they get the Taf? Because they kept the Torah from the beginning till the end itself, and that's where the end of the story. Now the Gemara is going to have a discuss if you assume that Tama's zechut avot, right? When did it end? So the implication from the story here is that the zechut avot stops in Yechezkel chapter 9.
When the destruction happens.
Right. Oh. So with the Gemara, we'll stop here, but the Gemara just let you know what's going to be the next time we learn, is that the Gemara is going to say, so when did it really stop? Now, there's no place where it says it stops, but you got to go back and look at the last time that you find zechut avot being used. So it's going to go back and show you that one of them is Eliyahu at Har Carmel. There's a few others where you see zechut avot. So the assumption is after that time you don't find zechut avot because you don't find it in the Tanakh after that. So it's towards the end of the first bayit or beginning of the first bayit where the actual zechut avot happens. But either you say the Brit Avot still exists, or you follow the other opinion that says Tachon zechut avot, it never really ended. The fact that there's no the psukim doesn't mean it didn't happen, just didn't have an opportunity to be recorded. Or you say that if you're a tzaddik, you can still get zechut avot. So that's the good news for all of us. But that'll take us into, so the story itself, though, about this Yechezkel, which is really very strange, it's probably one of the strangest chapters in Tanakh, is actually seen as a precursor for Churban Abayis. But the key value that we take out from this, of course, that if you could have an impact and you don't, you're responsible. Okay, that's a pretty heavy message. Okay, this coming Monday is a legal holiday. Okay, my suspicion is some people will be away, some people are away already, so I think we're going to skip next Monday. Okay, and we'll pick up again. I'll send you guys a reminder. We'll pick up on the 9th. 9th? The 9th, yes, the 9th. Okay? And we'll be able to pick up right away. If you don't remember the story by next in 2 weeks, it'll be okay, because the story is behind us.
So it's a really wild